The water turning green with dorado. Incredible sights. The Thunderbird with a really huge score. What's it like on the other side of the border as the violence calmed down? Are you able to cross and go fishing with your friends in Ensenada, Cabo San Lucas report, and so much more this morning on the Morning Briefing. Welcome everybody. It's great to have you here on the Friedman Adventures YouTube channel. Boy, I'll tell you, there is so much going on, so much to catch you up on, and it is great to be with you all on a lovely but foggy morning. Most of the time when I'm out here, it's kind of sunny and warm, but early here this morning, just after sunrise, it's a little bit chilly. I'm glad I got my Daiwa nice jacket on here, and hopefully this fog will burn off and you'll be able to get out on the water and see things clearly, because finding a kelp in the fog can be a little bit more difficult. Hopefully, as I say, this will all burn off. Hey, it is great to be with you, and I want to start you out down in Cabo San Lucas this morning because Desiree Rodriguez. Now, every once in a while, somebody will come into your life that changes your perspective on absolutely everything, and Desiree Rodriguez was one of those people. Of course, if you've never seen the video, the podcast we did with Desiree and Mark Paisano and Paul Strasser, you owe it to yourself to go in the show description and click on the link and watch it right now. It has to be one of the most emotional moments in my life, and that's saying a lot. I mean, the birth of my kids, graduating from college, getting married, all of those things. I mean, this ranks right up there at the top, perhaps at the very, very top, as Desiree Rodriguez was rescued by Mark Paisano and Paul Strasser 36 years ago. You owe it to yourself. Well, anyway, what's Desiree doing in Cabo San Lucas? She's down there with her family, and she dropped me a note and said, hey, where's a good place to go fishing? So I sent her over to Pisces Fleet, and they had a phenomenal day on the water, and I'm so happy they did. Catching all kinds of yellowfin tuna, having really a wonderful time in Cabo, and that warms my heart to see that. So all my best to you, Desiree, and your family. You know that, and of course we'll continue to watch Cabo and everything else in between. All right, so now that we're on the subject of Mexico, is it safe to cross the border? And once again, I ask you to do your own risk assessment. I'm not here to say, yeah, go ahead, go, and then, something happens. Or I'm not here to say, well, I am actually here to say don't go if I really believe that it's too dangerous. And the other day I thought it was. Now it seems like things have calmed down. You're going to find heavy military presence when you go across in Tijuana and Tecate and Rosarito and Ensenada. And that's a good thing. That's quelled this cartel violence down. And just to go back, man, these white turnbirds are having a convention right down the street. Can you hear that? Going nuts down here. That's great. That's a good surf fishing sign. Anyway, there's heavy military presence down there. I think that has calmed things down. There hasn't been any more stuff going on. Just to go back, cartels were setting ablaze cars. There was gunfire you could hear, or there was storefronts being vandalized and robbed. And again, turf wars in Tijuana. There's 3 major cartels that are slugging it out down there for the lucrative drug trade of sending drugs into the United States of America, where unfortunately we have an insatiable appetite for those drugs. And so that was going on. It seems to have calmed down. I think it's good, but you do your own risk assessment. You have to figure out whether you think a bad thing can happen to you, what the chances that a bad thing will happen to you. And statistically speaking, you're probably less safe driving on the freeway going to Baja right now than you are crossing the border. But I'll leave that one up to you. Having said that, some really good fishing going on down there in Ensenada. The Pongueros, Arnie Man is back at it again, crossing and fishing with Arnie or any number of pongas down there. It's a great way to get the job done. You'll find good yellowtail fishing at Coronado Islands, but offshore, kelps are still holding lots of dorado. There's more yellowfin tuna. There's been marlin around. And of course, dorado fishing is really, really good. Having said that, sometimes it's a spectator sport. Some of those fish haven't settled and don't go on the bite every single day. A lot of times, and we don't think of this when you're offshore fishing, but it's based on tide. When the tide starts to move, those fish come off the kelp and they start to bite, and they really start to bite well. Previous to that, or before that tide starts to roll, you'll see sometimes tons of fish that don't want to bite. And it can be maddening, of course, but in most cases it's pretty good. So up there in the San Diego area, there are boats who are slamming the fish, and then there's boats that are just looking at the fish. Once in a while you'll see a boat that has a really poor day. Most days it's pretty average, and then there's those phenomenal days. Those multi-day trips have been doing really, really good. We'll talk about bluefin tuna in just one second, but let's focus on the kelps right now, where you need 30 to 40 pound fluorocarbon. We recommend Opsin USA, www.opsinusa.com. Put in FA at checkout, and you'll get a free gift and a handwritten note from Greg Brown. 1/0 to 2/0 size hooks. Choosing a really good hot bait always makes a big difference to your success. There's also some tuna getting on the kelps down there, so you'll see some bluefin and yellowfin, and something like that Daiwa Zakana lure will really work well. Tossing that on a kelp, dorado will bite it, as well as the tuna. You have a much better chance. Let that jig sink down, because sometimes when you see what's on the surface, it represents the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more fish down below. And when you're fishing iron, don't fish with less than 50 pound. You want to have some heavy string. It's a reaction bite. They're going to bite the heavy, so fish the heavy, that is for sure. We are seeing some really incredible signs down in this neck of the woods, and on the U.S. side of the border, also seeing incredible signs. Tino Valentine, he runs the Freedom. The other day, he was motoring along, starting to slow down. It was barely light. I mean, it was mostly the moon that had lit up the ocean, and it was quite bright because of that giant full moon. And Tino hears what he thought was a splash driving along, and he's like, did I hear it? What was that exactly? So he keeps going, and he hears it again, and he shuts the boat down, and he hears another splash. He looks out the window, and there's fish splashing around. It's still kind of dark, so he's not sure. So he gets on the PA, and he says, hey guys, there's no kelp here. It's barely light. I'm telling you, I'm hearing fish splash. Next thing he hears, hook up, and guys in the stern are bit. Dorado, free swimming dorado. And as the day went on and the day played out, and Tino Valentine's a guy who has all kinds of experience in Central America, in living down in Mexico for a couple of years. He's seen it all. He said he's never seen more dorado than he saw these last few days. Incredible sights down there. He said the water turns green with dorado. There's free swimming dorado everywhere. You find a kelp that's the size of a tennis ball, and it's got hundreds of dorado on it. You find one that's sizable, and it's got thousands of dorado on it. It's really incredible. And Tino said, man, it's a spectator sport for a lot of the day until that tide starts to run, and then all of a sudden, boom, you'll get bit. So that is some pretty incredible stuff, I have to say. Wow. And you want to say wow about something. How about the Thunderbird? What a trip they just concluded. Jeff Markland, of course, they had some big guns on there. I mean, they had a lot of sport fishing captains and old friends of Jeff's and other guys. So these guys all know what they're doing. And they spent some of their time up near San Clemente Island because that big bluefin is there. So that big bluefin is up west there. San Diego-based boats like the Polaris Supreme have been up there recently. In fact, he had 34 bluefin tuna in a night bite, 24 of those fish in the 100 to 120 pound class. Jigs, knife jigs, 250 grams seem to be just perfect. You don't want to do anything less than a 200 pound leader. There's been some spectacular fishing. But on board the Thunderbird, back to those guys, what a trip. It was a 2-day trip. $1.94 on the dorado. Tremendous dorado fishing. And there's some nice ones. There's a lot of that 5 to 10 pound dorado, but there's some 18, 20, even bigger size dorado running around right now. That is pretty darn good. Of course, they fished at night, and they had tremendous fishing on the big, giant bluefin tuna with 14 bluefin to 160 pounds. A lot of heartbreaks, pulled hooks, stuff like that. Really, really, really great fishing. And they also finished up with 56 yellowtail. 52 of those yellows were caught at San Clemente Island, so that's a really, really good sign as we move into late summer and fall. So what a trip on the Thunderbird. Can't say enough about that one. It was absolutely incredible. The Pride out of 22nd Street Landing had good dorado fishing up there with 50 plus. They had a bluefin tuna, about 50-pound fish on a kelp. Sean Roberts, captain of the Pride, says those bluefin are starting to get on the kelps. That 50-pounder, incidentally, was taken on a Colt Sniper. So those lures do work well on the kelps and will dig you up a nice bluefin from time to time. So really, really great stuff going on. Now, once again, some guys are missing and not connecting. Other guys are having phenomenal trips like they did on the Thunderbird. The San Diego, the boat that runs at 5 a.m. out of Seaforth Sport Fishing on a one-day adventure yesterday, 32 dorado, 1 yellowtail. Saw copious amounts of dorado on the kelps that didn't want to bite all that well. So hopefully that light switch is going to go on. Sometimes it's the tide, and the tide has been later in the day. I believe high tide today is going to be around 2 o'clock in the afternoon to give you some idea. Man, there's a lot of frickin' birds around here picking and doing their thing. That is such a great sign for you surf fishermen. Bait balls, foamers, we're seeing it all. There's so much fish around from below the Mexican border to up here past Catalina Island, up there at San Clemente Island. It is really tremendous. Now, that SCI bluefin tuna bite, we mentioned the Polaris Supreme, we mentioned some other guys having some really, really good scores. It's pretty much a nighttime thing, okay? It's a nighttime bite. You can look at them, you can wave at them, you can try to get their attention in the daytime, and they pretty much just thumb their nose at you. So once again, a nighttime kind of bite, 200-pound leaders at least, 250-gram knife jigs, and you should be in good shape. But you're going to have to be on a day-and-a-half trip or better, and they're going to have to go in that direction. Many guys are, Freedom, for example, is going down to that kelps where you have all of that magnificent fishing going on with all kinds of dorado in the water. In fact, Tino Valentine said in all his years of fishing, and this is saying a lot, I mean, and once again, guys in Central America, down there in Mexico and everything else, he's never seen more dorado than he saw this past week. It is really phenomenal stuff that is going on. Hey, the Fred Hall Show is coming back. What do you think about that, everybody? Fred Hall Show, and congratulations to Bart. I'm happy to see that. He's going to be in Del Mar in late February, I believe it is. And then late March, back at Long Beach with the Fred Hall Show. Of course, South Coast Sport Fishing Magazine will be over there at the Orange County Fairgrounds, and that has gained a lot of momentum and is doing really well. I know a lot of people will be attending that. That's going to be in the traditional time, early March. So I believe it is going to start the first Wednesday of March, and then run through Sunday. I believe that's right. You can check me on that, or I'll check it and update you again tomorrow if I've screwed that up. But we've got all those shows. Now, my question to you, drop a comment. Will you be attending both shows? Are you happy the Fred Hall Show is back? How do you feel about that? I'm curious to see if you're only going to attend one of those shows or you'll be attending both. My guess is you guys will run around and hit all 3 shows. Some of you will drive down to San Diego. Those who live in San Diego will go to the Del Mar show and then back in Long Beach. That's great news. Hopefully that is going to continue to build once again. Taking a look at the islands, we have seen some really great fishing down there at Todos Santos Island off Ensenada. A lot more yellowtail. All those yellows that are on the kelps are eventually going to flood into the islands also and take up residence there. We're seeing good barracuda there, along with some good calico bass fishing. Coronado Islands have been excellent recently. The conditions have settled down, and there's great yellowtail fishing going on there. 30 to 50 yellows, not out of the question at the islands right now, as well as some good barracuda and bass and, you know, rockfish, whitefish, that kind of stuff. San Clemente Island, that's where all the bluefin guys are up west there, and they're having some phenomenal nighttime fishing for the most part. There are misses sometimes, but it's been very good on nice grade fish. A lot of that fish, 80 to 200 pounds. How can you beat that? I mean, it's amazing, that bite that we've got going here in SoCal within 1 day range. it's in 1 day range. However, you got to be on a day and a half at least, because you got to fish nighttime. And that is just phenomenal fishing. And listening to Jeff Markland say that he had over 50 yellows at the island itself, that's great news, man. I mean, that bodes well for the fall. And I'm thinking we're going to have an incredible fall, maybe a throwback to years gone by when we used to hang on and wait until September to catch local yellowtail. Maybe that's what's going to happen on the Horseshoe Kelp in the Santa Monica Bay and elsewhere. So we'll continue to watch that for you very, very closely. We continue to move you up the Channel Islands area. Every once in a while, a hit on the white sea bass. Not all that much. It's mostly now a few yellowtail, a few sea bass, a few halibut, rockfish, bass fishing. Not off the hook. I mean, they finally come down to earth up there in the Channel Islands after really a spectacular year. The Aloha Spirit yesterday had one white sea bass and then a mix of other fish. So we'll continue to watch that as we look at the coastal areas. Man, it's been a tough year overall on the coast. We had a few spurts on sand bass and barracuda, but overall it's been tough. San Diego area, we continue to see a little bit of bass down there, a few barracuda, occasional yellowtail, kind of, you know, hit and miss. Same thing off the Dana Point area where they're catching calico bass, mostly shorts. Up here in the Long Beach area, man, I'll tell you, conditions, here we are in August, for God's sakes, starting to point towards September, and we still have dirty water inshore, which doesn't bode well for a good bass bite or anything like that. So boats like the City of Long Beach were out yesterday, almost had their limits of sculpin. They get that in the bank, so everybody goes home with some good table fare. Got into the dirtier, shallower water where the bass and the sheep's head and the whitefish are, and they picked off about 20 legal bass, not bad. Moving up there in the Santa Monica Bay, a few bass, mostly rockfish. Up in the Channel Islands, a few barracuda up there, and occasionally a good hit on the Island Spirit up there out of Ventura sport fishing, but similar kind of a situation. In the surf, my God, there is a bird convention going on here this morning. And all those white terns picking in the surf are a good sign that there is some kind of bait fish in there. And following that bait fish, of course, will be halibut and yellowfin, croaker and corvina, and a myriad of different other types of surf fish is probably going to occur here, especially if we get you toward the toward the high tide, which again, I believe is about 2 o'clock this afternoon. So down along our beaches, some good yellowfin croaker fishing. Down around Bolsa Chica, it's been good. Up in the Santa Monica Bay, good corvina fishing, surf fishing pretty darn good, and that should continue into November. We'll keep our eyes on that and so much more. So we got so much going on. It's so great to be with you all again. We've got this crazy situation where the water literally turns green with dorado. So much dorado. Sometimes it bites, sometimes it doesn't bite. San Clemente Island, yellow starting to cooperate up there, and right offshore from there, good nighttime bluefin tuna fishing. And of course, down in San Diego, kelp patty fishing, a little bit hit and miss. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. Dorado, yellowtail, more marlin starting to show up, yellowfin tuna, bluefin tuna. We're on the Malihini, of course, this Friday. If you want to join us, I think there's a few spots left. You can call H&M Landing to book for this Friday on the Malihini. That's 619-222-1144. Fred Hall shows back. So much more going on. It's all great stuff, and it's always my pleasure to spend some time with you. Thanks again for tuning in to the Friedman Adventure YouTube channel. Take care, my friends. I hope to see you really, really soon.